Hi folks,
Hi everyone.
welcome back to ViewOf2 Impromptu,
Yep.
where we discuss current events and basically just themes that we have opinions on but aren't necessarily highly educated in or heavily researched in. So
Yeah.
that's our disclaimer.
Yes.
But before
we are not experts.
before we go ahead though, we would just remind you to please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you're notified of when we release videos, as well as share, like, and comment.
Yes, and promise that we'll always respond to your comments. So Hiram wants it to be known that I respond on our behalf.
No, that's fine.
Yeah.
So let's get into this one.
Yes.
We'll be discussing the latest video release by an artist that I've never heard of before.
Because you're an old white guy.
Called Cardi B. And
Yes.
she was in collaboration with some woman who had V in the middle of her name.
Yeah, also I've forgotten her name.
So
the song is called WAP.
now WAP for me used to be a surfing term. But I guess it's not that in this case. It has to be, you can't actually say what the acronym stands for, but needs to say it is racy. You just have to watch the video to
or don't watch it.
Yeah, well, don't watch it. We wouldn't suggest watching it. So if you don't know who she is, don't bother yourself. But there are apparently 65 million people in 5 days who've watched this video.
Yeah.
So the whole reason why we bring it up is because there's been sort of a polarization of views from both left and right, and conservative and liberal, and in between. And so we'll be just discussing what we've seen and what we think about it.
Yes.
So Cardi B is, as far as I know, she's always had quite racy subject matter.
Yes.
She's actually a self-confessed stripper, apparently.
Yeah, she was a stripper before she became a musician. She was a professional.
Before she thought she became a musician.
Hey,
you gotta keep that to yourself.
I got nothing against your music. I'm not saying anything.
Is that your disclaimer?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so what I've seen from both sides is there's the polarization is that on one side it's seen as the material that she's covering is empowering women, and from the other side it's self-deprecating and not self-deprecating but self-objectifying.
Yes.
And so you've got the one side saying yay, and the other side going, what the heck are you doing?
Going on? Yeah.
And how can a culture that we live in, which is a cancel culture, which is concerned about offending, be celebrating this? So platforms which would usually be censoring this kind of material, or material in general that's social offensive, are now hailing it as a great achievement.
Yeah, and so I guess the question for that is, was it meant to be offensive? Well, so that
from what I've seen, I kind of think it was.
It was meant to be offensive.
Yes.
All right, so
depending on your point of view, I mean, maybe they thought, well, I'm just showing my freedom.
Yes.
Or I'm giving my opinion about something, and the other side are going, yeah, but you're basically deforming the image of a woman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So perhaps to give everybody a little bit of information about the video, as Hiram was saying, it's two ladies. They're both rapping. We would say it could be described as pretty explicit. It's not.
It's pretty explicit.
In terms of the things they say.
Yes, very.
The lyrics are pretty explicit. This is where, I don't know, you and I might differ a little bit. The video for me wasn't as, what's the word? Racy, raunchy? What's the word? Wasn't as
sexualized,
as filthy, as I had anticipated it being.
Why was that?
Because if you look at the genre, the theme of it, and you compare it to videos in the past, it hasn't really been that much more as far as the video is concerned. So for those of you who know Ladies of Rap, Little Kim, if you know...
that was an older one,
yeah. Don't even say that.
Older song.
Little Kim is known as like the first lady
25 years ago
of rap in that genre of rapping for women. She's very well revered by those who respect that genre. Nicki Minaj as well has done something similar as far as the video is concerned. So yes, it is explicit and it does show body parts. I just don't think it's done it
In the swimsuit area.
It covered most of the swimsuit area.
Yeah.
But I have to say, it wasn't as bad as I thought it would be,
Okay.
coming from a woman who is a stripper.
Was a stripper.
Or was, excuse me, who was a stripper. I thought it would be a lot more things to be seen. I'm not saying that it wasn't raunchy. I'm just saying it wasn't as raunchy as I thought it was going to be. And in terms of showing flesh. Having said that, I would still not want anybody under 18 watching it.
Anybody?
Well, I mean, after 18, you're free to watch what you want. But if people are under my control, if I was a parent, I would not want this to be freely available to under 18-year-olds.
So what does that say about those who are supposed to be censoring youngsters from this kind of information? So, like, for example, platforms will say, we don't want people to see this, so we're censoring it. But I go onto a social media platform and it's freely available to me regardless of my age. I can watch what I want. But if it's seen as too conservative, it's taken off because it's offensive.
See, I don't know that the political debate about it, but you do offer, I think, a very interesting question is whose responsibility is it? Mm-hmm. You know, if you go to social media, should social media put barriers to say for this type of video?
No, I don't think they should. But they're doing it to a specific. It's almost like there's they're
deplatforming them?
Yeah, it's deplatformed, or it's censored, or it's shadow banned, or it's whatever, because of the material on one side, but then it's hailed on the other side. So there isn't a consistency what I see.
And I
don't want anything censored. People should be able to censor themselves, but it's being censored on the one side and not on the other. It's hailed as something which it just boggles the mind.
But here's the thing. So I'm trying to hear you, and it seems as though you're saying there are people who are saying anything that's conservative is censored, and anything that is not
anything but conservative things that they find offensive, which are a lot of things.
Are you saying there are things on the liberal side that are not censored? I mean, that are not censored. That are not censored that you think should be censored.
Like this.
Based.
So as far as I can tell, a conservative has concern for morals, and a liberal has concern for social justice.
See, I don't know if
generally across those spectrums, and so a conservative would like to have moral issues censored, and a liberal would like to have social issues
censored. Oh, okay. Yeah. I thought you were saying a liberal person.
Their point of view is that social injustice is more important, and these guys are saying that moral injustice is a concern.
I don't think liberals are necessarily saying moral injustices are not a concern. They just
they see moral injustice as a different thing to what a conservative will see a moral injustice.
That's
so what I'm saying is, so moral for a conservative would be sexual purity, moral specific values for the family, whereas the liberal or the left side would be civil liberties, concerns over what's seen as a social issue from a racial point of view or from an economic point of view. So if you go and speak out against a liberal person's issues, because the media are generally liberal, they'll censor it more likely than they won't on the other side. That's what I'm saying.
I hear you, but going back to that whole moral and sexual purity, and taking it back to the video that we said we're really basing our conversation on, there are people who felt that this video is great, the video itself, because it's showing women empowerment. You know, you have a whole lot of women doing, famous women doing a cameo in it. You've got women dressed in the way that they feel comfortable in dressing.
Empowerment, how though?
In that you should be allowed to express yourself as a woman in the way that you want to, without being judged and without being thought of as immoral.
So they're taking it upon themselves to say, this is how women should be able to express, this is how women express themselves.
They're taking it upon themselves, is the argument, that this is how some women want to express themselves.
And how's that empowerment?
because there was a time when if women wanted to dress that way, they would be labeled certain things, and they're saying I should be able to dress this way without someone
So I
putting
should be able to behave
derogatory
like a whore without being told I'm a whore.
That depends of, and this is the video, not the lyrics. We're not to
No,
the
I'm
lyrics
talking
yet.
about the video.
Is what is it to dress like a whore? There was a time where wearing a short skirt was considered dressing
No, I
like
said
a
behave like a whore.
whore. Okay.
So there's the whole.
So how does one behave like a whore?
Watch the video.
So that's the big argument is.
Or don't watch it, but well, I suppose you have to watch it too.
Yeah. So that's really the thing is me dancing around wearing a costume, in a studio, me behaving like a whore.
How are you dancing and what costume are you wearing? Yes.
Okay, so what is a whore?
You know what a whore is. Are you asking me to explain what one is?
Okay, so for me, a person and that's where it gets a bit dicey is.
So the reason why I bring up whore is because that's the song's first lines.
And that's why I said I'm differentiating the lyrics from the video. If I'm looking at the video, if the video was silent,
okay,
right, and I was just looking at these women, what would be parts of the problem? And I've been honest enough to say I would prefer my children, or if I had children or anybody in my care under the age of 18, I prefer
but
perhaps
why
no one to watch it, but
watch
because you're still forming your mind. Because I am personally a conservative person, but that's because I'm conservative. That's why I wouldn't want it. That's not to say other people wouldn't want it, but for me, these are young minds being shaped, and this is not something that I would want them to think is a way to behave. I don't want you to think that you can show off body parts, and that's okay, but that's from my conservative point of view. I know that there's a length of skirt, going back to the conversation. I would prefer the skirt length to be almost by knees. I've had many people say that's ridiculous. Young people shouldn't have to wear skirts up to their knees. It can be midway up their thigh, and that's perfectly natural, and that's perfectly okay, and there's nothing wrong. There are people who will perhaps label you as a whore if your skirt is that short. I wouldn't necessarily label you as a whore, I don't think, if your skirt was midway up your thigh. I just wouldn't be comfortable with that for you.
Yeah.
But that doesn't, to me, make you less of a valuable woman to the point where I'm labeling you just because you're dressed in that way. And so, forgetting the lyrics, looking at the video, I wasn't comfortable with them showing their butts. I think that's a private area that does not need to be seen. However, when you go to nudist beaches, right?
Who goes to nudist beaches?
Whoever wants to go to nudist beaches.
Okay.
Beaches, no, nudist beach.
Beach.
People wouldn't necessarily label you as a prostitute or as a whore because you're naked in a nudist beach. So perhaps where you are, I'm forgetting the word, context matters. In how they are in a studio, in a controlled studio. They're not around everybody, so.
No, but no, the video's around everybody.
The video is then shown to everyone.
Yes, but it's the context of that stuff occurring, which you say is in a studio, but it's now in everyone's face. So it's not just in a studio.
I know, I'm saying where it was shot.
Yeah, but where it was shot's irrelevant. Because it's the material is being distributed worldwide out in the open. So whether it was shot was immaterial.
So if a girl is wearing a bikini by the beach, and it's a
depends on
little
what,
bikini, does that make her a whore?
Makes her ways whorish.
But it doesn't make her a whore.
Well, they weren't wearing bikinis at the beach. There was a message that they were putting across. that was very whorish in its ways.
In the video.
Yes. Did you not see what they were doing? Oh, I can't go into what they were doing, but go watch the video. No, they weren't only dancing.
Suggestively.
How many times have you watched it?
I've watched it once.
Okay, so there's a 3.5 minute process of events that occurred. It wasn't just dancing.
Okay, so they were being suggestive.
Very, very suggestive.
Okay.
Sexually illicit.
I'll give you that.
Yeah.
It's just.
So if the girl's wearing a bikini doing that on the beach,
that's where then that whole fight of women's liberation is. If you are.
Yes, but no, what are they liberating to though?
The ability to express yourself sexually without being seen as a whore.
But to what end though?
To not be seen and labeled as a whore just because.
But you're going to be seen as that.
Because. And that's what they say they're trying to change.
But they can't change it by doing it.
You shouldn't be seen as a whore just because you are a sexual being. A sexual female being.
That's not a sexual being. It's a whorish being.
Which you refuse to try and tell me what it is. Isn't a whore someone who sleeps around with lots of men? Isn't that what a whore is?
That's why I said their ways are whorish, because that's what they're saying.
Yeah,
and what they're doing matches what they're saying.
So, at the moment, I'm trying to take. If I said if this was a silent, video, if this was a silent video, because that's what I'm trying to say. There were two parts to this. There's the video that people say women should be allowed to dress however they want, and we can discuss whether women or anybody should be allowed to dress however they want. I don't mind that, right? And that is a discussion to be had.
Well, I'm looking at it from the whole package. I say you can't take the two apart. Let's look at the whole package, what they're presenting. And to me, it's a terrible example to young women, because I can guarantee you, when men are looking for women to settle down with, they're not looking for that kind of woman. They're definitely not looking for that kind of woman.
And yet Cardi B is married.
She's putting on an act, obviously. But my point is, well, I didn't know she was married, but
yeah, that's why she said in the lyrics. That's how I got this ring.
Well, I mean, that could be fictitious. I don't know. I haven't looked into her status. But the point is that what she's portraying and what other women may be buying into is that this is an acceptable way to behave, and maybe women generally don't care if guys like her or not. But surely, most young women who view that will be looking for relationships. And if they're behaving in that fashion, in my opinion, men aren't going to be going to want to settle down with that kind of woman. Maybe they'll be the kind of woman they'll want to have sex with, fun, but they won't be wanting to settle down with that kind of woman, starting a family with that kind of woman.
So there's two things going on there that you've said, right? So the one thing is, how many men in this day and age are looking to settle down?
Those who are looking to settle down. That's what I'm arguing for.
Right. Okay.
So if they're not, then fine. Then behave the way you want. If you don't want to settle down.
Okay.
But from the perspective of, and there are still a lot of people looking to settle down. A lot.
It's possible. Yeah. Like we said, we're not scientists. We haven't done the study. But what I'm finding is, from our sort of generation to the generation down, there are less. There might be a lot, but there certainly seems to be a lot less who want to be in what we know as a traditional settling down, which is to get married, be with one partner for the rest of your life. We're finding that partnering and commitment and the idea of commitment is changing quite a bit. And it's certainly not necessarily about one person for the rest of your life tied to, it's more about being with this person, experiencing what life is like with this person, being with another person. That seems to be what the younger generation is really more interested in, from what I see. I could be wrong, than what our generation, I am a little younger, and older people were looking for.
Generally, people in their 30s are looking to settle down, more so than people in their 20s. And these women are in their mid-20s.
Yeah.
And so who knows what they're going to be wanting to do in the future. I'm not talking about them. I'm talking about the influence they're having on children between the ages of 10 and 15, which run the music industry, especially women, girls, and the younger age group. How they're being influenced. How's empowerment seen as behaving like that over being virtuous and kind and generous and loving? And you're probably going to say to me, that doesn't mean that they behave like that they're not kind. I'm saying they come across as a very aggressive, in-your-face, socially disruptive.
Yes, and they're trying to be socially disruptive, right? That is the whole point, because they're saying the way in which women have had to behave in society in order to be accepted and seen as acceptable and seen as respectful has been for them. And I've been very clear that I don't think this is something I want, but for them it has been a very oh my goodness, English has just run away from me. A very oppressive way where you've had to be this straight-laced person to be seen and respected and be worthy of marriage. Is that fair?
No, well, they're straight-laced, and then they've taken it to the absolute nth degree, and have exaggerated it to way off the deep end on the left.
Okay, and I'll give you that, and maybe they're saying
no, this should be now how we're accepted, and I'm thinking, but how can you? It can't compute in my head. Maybe I just need to think about it a bit longer.
Or maybe they're saying, we know that we're taking it to the extreme, but we're taking it to the extreme to show you how extreme the conservatives have been, and maybe we can, as we discuss it as society, try and see the middle ground. You know, where how far can a woman go before she starts being labeled certain things? I would agree with you and say, as far as Cardi B's video might be a bit far, it's not something that I would advocate for. I would prefer for people to be dressed. But when I look around in malls, I see young girls whose parents are doing their shopping for them because parents have the money. It's not young girls that are doing the shopping who are wearing bum shorts.
Yes, no, I'm saying, how is this helping to eradicate that?
Unless they're saying we're not trying to eradicate that. We're trying to say, girls, if your mother or your father... Yes,
they're trying to do that. But in terms of how to raise a generation, how is that helping raise a generation in an uplifting, enlightening, self-respecting way?
And that's what they're saying. They're saying if little girls want to... if little girls' parents want those little girls to show their butts... And I don't understand it. Yeah. I don't understand it. I wouldn't want to do it. But is it fair for me to then judge a mother or a father who wants to buy her or his daughter
absolutely
shorts that show a young girl's bum to the world in the mall? Is it seen as you not having self-love?
No, it's having self-respect.
Well, I respect myself enough to be able to show my body.
You obviously don't.
Okay, so then what is self-respect then?
Self-respect is also having respect for the other person. So you're not only respecting yourself, but you're respecting the other person. When the other person looks at you, it's like a shock on the eyes, especially when a young person's doing it. Then you can bring in the whole concern over the proliferation of pedophilia in the world. And how is that now going to be good for your child to be seen by another cast of society and you don't know who they are? They're lurking all over the place. They could be victims to that.
You see, the problem we fall into when we have that type of argument is we're then saying it's the victim's fault. Excuse me. I'm so sorry.
No, I'm not saying it's the victim's fault. I'm saying that they're not helping the situation.
We're then saying it's the victim's fault when they get sexually abused, sexually harassed. I don't know, are we allowed to say RAPE on YouTube?
No.
Okay, that word. If is it the victim's fault? How about a woman should be allowed to dress however she wants to dress, and whoever's looking at her, if it offends you, look away, but that is not a reason to abuse her.
No, I'm not saying there's a reason to abuse her. I'm saying that the likelihood of it, and I don't advocate for that, but it happens.
Nuns are abused and they're dressed fully. So
the point is that you guys we constantly hear about a rape culture, but what about a culture of immorality?
And that's where it also gets really interesting.
But there's two sides to it, and neither of them are, in my mind, correct.
Okay.
Obviously, you don't want a rape culture, but you also don't
You
want
obviously don't want it.
But you don't want an immoral culture either. You want a culture that's respectable.
And I agree with that.
Yeah.
Where for me it gets, I'm trying to argue it on what would be considered the left side, because I'm aware that I'm in this argument I'd be considered very right, is to say, who judges what morals are? Are we setting it on Western standards? Because if we then take it in South Africa and we then use this example that people get irritated by, but it's a true example. My people, Zulu people, we traditionally, and if you go up,
the reed dances.
Yeah. There's always been, you're allowed to show your breasts when you're young. You're allowed to show your bum. It's not seen as immoral in any shape or form.
Yeah.
There is no rape culture that comes from the fact that you are dressed in that way. So is it really how you dress, or is it that we've sexualized people so much in the Western culture? We've sexualized people so much in the Western culture that how they dress has now contributed to that. Because in other cultures, when you show your body, it isn't necessarily seen as a sexual thing.
No, but the way they've portrayed it isn't only about showing your body, it's about using your body to get something.
So we're having two different discussions here. I was talking about in the mall when a child is wearing that compared to Cardi B. Cardi B's video is sexualizing.
Yes, but Cardi B's cultural representation is moving over into the mall where the kids are doing those things. That's where the influence is being taken.
So you think when a mother buys bum shorts for her daughter, she's trying to or father, she's trying to sexualize her child?
Yes.
You don't think that it could
She might not be trying to, but she is.
And that's what I'm saying is that fair? Because if for Zulu people, that's not necessary, just because we're buying these short skirts and we're saying go around within Zululand, although that's also changing because of the Western influence, but that's not seen as sexualizing their child.
Well, I don't have a comment on that. All I can say is, from what I've seen from the Cardi B and that whole rap culture, especially on the female side, is that it's
within that specific genre.
Yeah, genre.
Okay.
Very salacious, very sexualized,
and I agree.
Very almost prostituting themselves out to get what they want.
And I will agree with you there, right? I'm not disagreeing with you, but the question becomes, for those on the left who are saying this is a way to have discussions and to say women empowerment, do they not have some leg to stand on, like at least have the discussion that for some women for the longest time you have felt oppressed by how morals are judged.
If we were in 1960, I'd agree, or 1955, but we're not that, and it hasn't been that way for a long time.
For some women, for others it hasn't.
I mean, the culture's completely changed now.
I wouldn't say completely, right? I don't think I would agree.
It's come a heck of a long way since the
It has come a heck of a long way, but there are some who are saying it hasn't come long enough.
Where's the end of it?
And that's what we're here to.
So where do they see the end of it being?
And what are morals, and who's to say what is moral? Who's to say what type of woman can get married and can't get married? And for men, if you're saying...
No, but we're not saying who is to, we're just saying we're not looking for that kind of thing for marriage material.
And therefore, men, if you're not looking for that thing for marriage material,
don't dress your kids like that.
What material are you looking for? Because you can be married and still look at that stuff. So you obviously, even when you're married, are interested in that stuff.
We're not interested in having a wife like that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you're saying for women who, if you just want to be a side piece.
Well, I can't comment on that.
I don't know. But it really is a moral question to ask. It seems that, and you're the only man here, so I guess I'm going to be addressing you about it. It seems that men are very happy to box women into two different boxes. If you want to be married to me, there's a way you behave and there's a way you can't behave, right? I am censoring you. And if you want to behave this way, I'm still interested in you. I'm still going to do things with you. but I'm not going to put you in this box, and if you're in this box, you can't jump out and be in this box. And
that's being very regimented. No.
It seems. I mean, that's what you're saying.
No,
though.
I'm not saying that. I'm saying you want a woman who naturally wants to behave that way. Doesn't have to feel boxed in, but you're looking for a woman who wants to be that way.
All right, and so the question becomes, women, do you not want to jump in and out of those boxes? Do you perhaps start to
Can't do.
do you start to
You can't be in that box and suddenly go into that box.
Do you start to behave in certain ways? Do you start going to church? Do you start dressing in a certain way? Because you've been told that if you don't do these things, you're not going to be, for those of you who are interested in marriage, you're not going to be considered marriage material.
Going to church. No,
or just in general. I'm sorry, I'm talking about the for me, the South African culture, it's always been church girls are the good girls. It's now changing. But are you women seeing that in order to be seen as eligible and not wanting to for marriage and not wanting to be judged, feeling that you have to put on this costume to be considered eligible for this thing that you say you want? Or do you think it's just who you are naturally, if we're really, really being honest? But that was just the video element. And I agree with you, Hiram. It was highly sexualized. But I do understand when the left says, let's have this conversation. Maybe we should see it as women empowerment. I don't know if we should go that far. But I also am very uncomfortable as a woman, especially seeing how high up being a woman is for me. I'm very uncomfortable with automatically labeling you as a whore or whorish because of my imputed
Well, it wasn't labeled, man. They called themselves that.
Because of my imputed beliefs of what a woman should dress like in public. I'm very aware that I'm conservative in how I see things, but I'm aware that not everybody is like that. And so I am trying to be allowing to see other people's point of view and then judging from their point of view rather than just from mine. Now, going to the lyrics, right, which I know you don't want to separate. The lyrics were, they left nothing to the imagination.
Well, they used lots of allegories and similes and all sorts of crazy.
Yeah. But the whole suggestion was, if you want something from me, I want something from you, right? If you as a man want access to my body.
So which men are you going for?
If you as a man want access to my body, then I as a woman want access mostly to your wallet, right? Whether you're paying for, I think one was university fees. Was it university? Was it or college or something? And so the discussion that Hiram and I were having, which I think is very interesting, and he asked it now, and he said, what type of man are you looking for? Isn't that marriage? Aren't I in marriage generally saying, if you want me to have your children, if you want me to give you, especially in religious Christian marriage, perhaps, I don't know about other religions, but isn't marriage saying, if you want access to parts of me, I want access to parts of you?
No.
Really? So, for those of you who are Christian...
What access to what, though?
If you want to have... can I say SEX on YouTube?
Yeah, I guess.
Right? So... if you want to be able to lay with a woman, I'm sorry, I'm going to be using all of these words because I don't know what YouTube allows or doesn't allow at this point. I don't know, right? Don't Christian religions basically say, in order for you to be able to have relations, they're called marital relations, and you can only do these things in marriage? And then don't you as women say, if you want to be married to me, you have to be able to afford our lifestyle? Isn't that a transaction?
It doesn't have to be that, though. You can just go into the marriage with understanding that you love each other, and we will work our way through every situation that we get into, regardless of whether it's money or whatever it is.
Yes, but it doesn't have to be. But generally speaking, it's, I expect you as a man to be the provider, and you as a man expect me to be the nurturer. And in order for me to be the nurturer as a woman, nurturing means we have children. To have children means you have access to my body. And so for those things to happen, even though you might not be able to do it right at the beginning, but there is that transaction.
Well, we have access to each other's bodies, and we have access to each other's money, and we have access to each other's time.
And that's exactly what Cardi B is saying. Listen,
no, she's not saying that.
We're having access to each other's things. For you to have access to my things, I want access to your things. And isn't that marriage?
To a level, it is, yes.
The reason why I bring it up,
she's portraying it in a way that degrades the process, makes it slutty, dirty, it makes it feel grimy.
And that's really the interesting thing. I hear you, because I've heard this said before, and I really had to pause. Is that just because she's making it coarse or unpalatable, doesn't mean marriage isn't that. Just because the way she's saying it hasn't got this romantic veneer to it, it doesn't mean that exchange is not going on. That has been a major discussion that's been going on between people who are now talking about marriage and the purpose of marriage, and men going, if I have to do this in order to be able to do that, then I don't want to be married to you. Those are the types of questions that are going on.
Well, we've got a whole other vlog or podcast that we discussed in marriage exchange.
But isn't Cardi B just saying here, the truth is, people, we are...
No, she's not just
we're all using... Wait, let me try. We are using each other. I'm just going to be honest about what it is that I'm using you for, and you can be honest what it is that you're using me for. But if we're being crude about marriage, I want things and you want things, and we've decided these are the things we want from each other, but these are things we want.
Yeah, in a very hoary way.
Yeah, and remember that person that we spoke to at the restaurant, who said that is what marriage is you want this and we... Is Cardi... My question is, for those of you who've watched this video, or those of you who will watch it, is she really so off the mark about women and male exchange? Or is she just so crude about it that it makes us uncomfortable, but it doesn't make it untrue?
Both.
Yeah.
So if nothing else, the video and the lyrics have caused a stir and have opened up a dialogue. So people from both sides are saying, yes, it's wonderful, no, it's terrible. So, and the dialogue can extend into, let's look at it as a social commentary. How are women being treated? How are they treated? Have they been better treated over time, or they're still oppressed, or whatever it is? And we can all have a wonderful discussion about it.
Yeah.
And draw our own conclusions, as we always will, because we use confirmation bias.
Yeah. And you know, if we're getting more and more videos coming out like that, and whether we like it or not, if we're not careful, they're going to, as they've already started, to influence our children. Is it our civil duty to stop this? Or are we saying, cool, this is great? Where is our responsibility as citizens of a place in terms of where our morals lie or don't lie? Who defines them for us? Is it international music and other sort of influences? How much of the responsibility of how our children behave, speak, interact, dress, is our fault? And should it be our fault? Where is that line?
Yeah, it straddles.
Yeah.
It's straddling the line.
You know, and can we always just point to somebody else? Or in the end, when you're given people to care for, the buck starts and ends with you.
Exactly. So it's up to you to make the decision. That's best for you.
And your loved ones and the people in your sphere of influence.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, let's hope this has been entertaining, and you've managed to get through the 40 minutes with us.
Yes.
And we appreciate your time, and we'd love to hear about your feelings on the subject. And Non will reply.
Yes, I will. I really would love to hear what you think.
So thank you, and please remember to subscribe and like and share.
Thank you.
Thank you, folks.